statewide, you get kicked over to MTC, and you have to reapply with a little bit more work, a little supplemental worksheet. And that would happen, I believe, in late summer, early fall.
And is this an annual grant round?
The funding source is annual because of this new legislation that kind of trickled down from the MAP 21 federal changes. They took too long to develop the guidelines, so this is a unique 2-year call for projects. Normally it's 120 million or 110 million annually, but this year it's doubled up. So they won't be doing another call for 2 years. After that, it will be annual.
And what is their selection criteria? What are they looking to accomplish through this?
Measured results, measure reductions in safety, measurable ways of calculating how much new activity you'll be producing, strong emphasis on disadvantaged communities, public process. So having gone through, the planning process, in an ideal world we would be all wrapped up and already sort of in design of a project. But I think the positioning and timing could be good. I've heard, shovel ready is always appealing to hear. Although there's non-infrastructure funding that's available, and I think their goal is to spread out the types of projects that they fund.
And Atherton doesn't really qualify as a disadvantaged community.
That's correct, that's my knowledge. That's why I think working with a partner is really critical. And so something like a Selby to Fifth Avenue connection, or or just piquing the interest of Caltrans. But I think we're going to have to be strategic in what
Are you working with like the county on this as well?
They've been invited to the stakeholder advisory groups. We've had representation from the city, and I know Gordon's. I think we've reached out to them. I think that I've been really curious to wanting them to come to the table this next meeting, because I do think they are a key stakeholder.
Well, I mean, North Fair Oaks
Is county, yeah. Okay.
So there's a chance that if we went in with a joint proposal with other jurisdictions, that would view favorably?
I would think so, yes. I mean, we've reviewed the guidelines. My firm has been all over this for months and months, so we've been tracking and getting kind of the inside scoop. But 25% of that 260 is going to disadvantaged communities. So, not to say that you would be excluded from being, getting an award if you weren't one, but there's certainly a reservoir that's being set aside.
Yeah. But it's Caltrans that will be doing the evaluation.
That's my understanding. The guidelines were developed by the CTC, the California Transportation Commission, but it's being administered by Caltrans. They have a couple of questions about how to administer some of these guidelines, and so I think we've been talking to them in Sacramento about some of the questions, how you do the cost-benefit analysis, and so we got our ears to the ground in terms of what that methodology, how rigorous does it need to be, so that when we actually do applications, we're right there.
What's the size of the grants that we're thinking of?
It's a minimum size is 250,000. That can be waived at the MPO level. I don't think they would. There's a lot of paperwork involved, so when I keep
What's the maximum?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's in the millions, but I don't know what the there might not be an actual cap.
Well, yeah, except politically they.
Exactly, but I don't recall. I can tell you in a minute or two when I get back to my seat for that. I don't think there's a cap.
So your proposal then, making May 21st proposal deadline.
Well, we're already in the process of putting together the comprehensive plan, and so it's really about just carrying forward some of the concepts maybe a bit further. A lot of it really is just documenting the public involvement with your with a partner, getting letters of support, writing the actual application. There are a few additional steps that are a bit more complicated than normal because of the emphasis on measurable impact. So
the proposal would need to come from public agencies, though.
Correct. Yes.
And you're thinking Atherton could be the lead agency, or?
We haven't really had that conversation, but I mean, the thought was, that you could be, or if there was an opportunity to support another project that you thought you'd benefit from, you know, but
I'm just worried about the timeline, you know, council meets every month, we meet every 2 months.
Yes.
May 21st is,
it's around the corner, yeah.
okay.
One other question, what is the range of the types of programs that that are eligible under ATP? I mean, this is mostly for bicycle and pedestrian improvements, but how?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just within bicycle and pedestrian realm, I mean, but you can go from, you can actually apply to do a master plan. You get funding to do a master planning effort. Safe Routes to School has a pot of money. You know, this ATP is kind of coming from a funneling of what were separate pots of money before, including a standalone Safe Routes. That Safe Routes program is now tucked in and has a pot of money, but over the course of the next couple of years, they're probably going to phase out the Safe Routes program at this statewide level. And so it's all going to be focused on active transportation and these new metrics. But bike share can be part of it. Non-infrastructure education and encouragement programming can be a part of it. It's relatively broad within the bike and ped.
Is the grant money you're talking about study money, or can it be used for implementation?
It can be used for any of those things. What I've heard is that this first round, I think they want to get some big projects implemented. But they will they will fund studies, they will fund big overcrossing projects and everything in between, because they do have a large sum of money.
And is the call for proposals on the web, or?
It is, yes. Well, the call is actually coming out on March 21st officially, but the guidelines have been going through a rigorous process and had to go up through the commissions to get approved. So we've had those now for a couple of months, the guidelines.
John?
I have one question. I see you've identified general bike lanes in neighboring jurisdictions. Do we know if there are any upgrades or bike master plans that are going to be in any of the other neighboring jurisdictions that we potentially could connect into if they're going to be doing upgrading as well?
Well, as part of this project, North Fair Oaks had a community plan. They identified bikeways. I don't think they'll be updating that anytime soon. Menlo Park, redid their bike plan in 2005. They'd probably be up for it, although I think they might have folded that into their general plan update. Palo Alto, we just did in 2012. The county's kind of the outlier. I know I caught some wind on the internet about when Menlo Park in the town won the Valparaiso grant, that they were thinking of actually adding on their segment all the way to Alameda. And that might be something they're interested in looking at. I don't know where that conversation has gone.
There's one other issue, of course, that you kind of touched upon, but I see it as a major issue, and that is, for example, on the Marsh Road, on either side, when you run into the county, you have a problem.
Yes.
Is the county going to give up a lane or two of Marsh Road in their jurisdiction to provide bicycle and pedestrian?
Right. That's why we think of studies in order, because it could come up where it's not a real logical place to put a lot of money. You have the parallel facility, Palmer Lane, or whatever, go around. But we want to look at it because it is such an important corridor. I mean, in long term, there's going to be an overcrossing at Marsh of 101, and this would be a big sort of link in that chain. We got the big Facebook thumbs up on the other side, and so I think that always piques people's interest. And you have the Bay Trail, you have Bedwell Park. So it is a logical corridor. There's not a lot of continuous corridors, but it's what I could see is maybe doing pedestrian facilities linking into the county, and then maybe having a parallel corridor for bikes, or doing shared lane.
I'm just thinking of the marsh part, where it meets the county line.
Right, and then it gets
And
down over.
on the north side, although in the Atherton part,
Pretty wide.
if you're willing to move trees and
Right.
utility poles and stuff, there's room. But once you get to the county, the houses are really close to.
Right, so we would look at narrowing up the lanes, maybe doing some civil improvements to try and sneak through at least a generous walkway. again, I think, it could end up being a very sort of pedestrian and bike separate versus a trail, a classic trail that you imagine on the waterfront.
Any other,
One more. So you said that there's about $260 million that's available under the ATP program. Right? That's across California.
Across California, yes.
Do you have a sense of what percentage of towns and cities across the state have their eye on that pot and are making applications? Because our small little town is, it looks like I saw about $10 million worth of budgeted things we want to do. And they could easily get more than $2 billion worth of applications.
They will get a lot of interest. And,
So then, if I was trying to place odds on the likelihood of our getting a meaningful amount of money, it's kind of, I mean, our daughter's applying to college soon, and we're trying to calculate odds. What kind of odds would we
I
expect?
did the Candy lottery myself, yeah,
I mean,
and lost.
yeah, so what kind of odds could we expect, given that, we'd have to partner with a more disadvantaged community to qualify under that criteria? There's, a lot of other applicants, I'm sure they're similarly well justified.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it's a puzzle piece, but I don't think it's out of the question because of Marsh having an interest from, I just described, fatalities on El Camino and at the Grand Boulevard. Going in at something that's relatively modest, 250, 300,000, could slip in, or if attached to another proposal with Fair Oaks, and they clearly do, tick off all those boxes. So, I think the key is being strategic, having those discussions in the short term to coordinate, and then making the call at that point whether it's worth pursuing.
well, thank you, this is very stimulating. I ought to give a chance